Have you from time to time hired someone and you've realized that it was not a good hire? So today we're going to talk about how to manage those people that you've hired that are less desirable and how I tend to deal with that situation. So today's video is going to be a shorter video, and what we're going to talk about is those employees that you've hired that you may think are not a good fit for your organization for whatever reason. And it's quite interesting and almost strange how more often than I would think, people come up to me and say, I've had this employee now for 6 months and I've just realized that you really know nothing. And my comment back to them is always, it took you 6 months to figure out that the guy or the girl didn't know what they were doing? 6 months is too long. So one of the things that I want you to be more critical about is when you hire someone and they don't fit the bill, that they are not producing to the level that is expected of them. And this is especially true if you're hiring someone of higher caliber and paying them a really good wage. So just recently I had someone who had hired an accountant for about $80,000 and came up with the exact same comment is, well, they've been working for me now for 6 months and that person certainly has not earned the $80,000 pay that I'm paying them. And my comment back to them has always been, what took you so long to act on that? And I get it because I used to be guilty of that too. We keep hoping that they're gonna figure it out, they're gonna get better, they're gonna get faster. But something that I've learned over the years is that they seldom do. And usually after the first month or so, you've got a pretty good idea as to whether or not they're gonna work out or not. And this is especially true again for the higher caliber people. I tend to be far, far more tolerant with those who are extremely green. So if I hire someone out of university, sometimes it'll take a year for them to just relax, mature, and start to really prosper. But for those people who are more mature, who have experience, and you're bringing them in, if they are not producing early on, I suggest that you make the tough decision earlier on.
I just stare at my desk, but it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
You got to keep in mind that keeping someone longer than need be is not good for anybody. You're not doing anybody any favors. You're not doing your firm a favor, nor are you doing that employee a favor. And sometimes it's better to cut them loose sooner and allow them to find better suited employment for themselves than you keeping them. So actually you firing them may very well be the kindest thing you could possibly do for that employee. So one of the things that I tend to recommend to mitigate the risk of hiring a high-end person and finding out that they are not at the caliber that you would like is don't be afraid of making those interviews a lot longer. So something that I've been suggesting to practitioners who are hiring the higher end people is that you do a 2-part interview. So part 1 is just to get a sense of the person's core values, their culture, their personality and all that to make sure it's a fit for your firm. And then once you've determined, yes, that person is actually a good fit for my firm, now the only thing I got to be sure about is that if I'm going to pay that person $80,000 a year in wages, that they are actually worth $80,000 a year and will produce the kind of work that I would expect from an $80,000 wage earner. So what I would suggest that you do is you have this person come in for a second interview and let them know, look, this interview is going to be an entire day or as long as it need be. And I've heard of organizations where the interview process is almost an entire week. Now, I wouldn't go that far, but to make it an entire day might be a good investment, and need be, you may need to even pay that person for that day. and tell them, look, I need you to come in for 1 day. I'm going to work on things with you, and we're going to give you $300. And at the end of the day, if you find out they know nothing, well, you've wasted $300, but that's a heck of a lot better than having spent a week, a month, or a year training this person that's not calibrated properly. So in that day, what you would have them do is a more complex question. So maybe have them do, put up a situation. Here's the client, here's the problem they've got, what would you recommend? And see their thought process. So do some role playing as you being the client and see if they can come up with those solutions that they should be able to come up with given their caliber. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I should be able to tell just by the resume. Well, talk to anybody who's got good experience in practice. They will all tell you horror stories where they got the resume and the resume said they had 6 years of experience working for this firm, 3 years for that firm. So right away, you're going to conclude, well, this person probably really knows what they're doing. And you bring them on board and darn it, they know nothing. It happens. So one of the things that I recommend you do is do not just rely on the resume. And again, this is especially true for the higher end employees. If I'm going to be paying that much money for an accountant or bookkeeper, they better be producing. So again, bring them in and put them to the test for an entire day and come up with well-organized questions or problems, or even have them do a tax return if you have to. But make sure they know what they're doing. So similarly, if they're saying they're familiar with this software or whatever, have them do part of a file on that software so you can really see whether or not they really do know how to use that software. Because it's amazing how many people will say that I'm familiar or very at ease with a certain software, and you put them to work and they know nothing about it. So putting them to the test might be a tremendous investment, and like I said, even if you have to pay them for that day, for them to spend a day with you, it may be the best investment you'll ever make. If any of you have any thoughts on this topic and what I've just said, I would really welcome to hear your comments, because I'm sure those of you listening to this video have your own thoughts and ideas of things you've tried, things that have not worked, or things that have worked. And this is whole ideas for us to all learn. So if some of you have tried things that you thought were really beneficial to really sort through the bad apples from the good, or the mechanism to determine more early on in the hiring process whether they're a fit or not, please do not be afraid to share in the comments below. Because this is whole idea of us to share ideas and learn from one another. So for those of you who are not too keen on posting your thoughts on YouTube because it is very public, I suggest that you join our private LinkedIn group where we will have discussions on that. So put your thoughts and comments and join the LinkedIn group below, and you will be allowed an opportunity to share your thoughts and hear other people's thoughts on exactly your concerns.